Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video 187, really getting up there on shapeshifters, skinwalkers, things associated with that, maybe the Wendigo as well to an extent. It could be construed as sort of a shapeshifter or an illusory, sort of semi-invisible creature, Mesoamerican lore of certain types. First though, a quick update, the Ars Thursia and Almadel are being illustrated as we speak, so it's not going to be that long before I have an edition of the Lesser Keys, which will probably be for quite some time the last edited work. It's too important not to do, but because of the Amazon restructuring of its self-publishing, I have to be careful of copyright. So I have to weed through all of my source files and make sure that I have multiple live archived sources that I can use to prove public domain for any further works, because I'm not willing to risk the entire library getting shot down because my account gets deleted. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to be very meticulous, very careful. I'm going to have to, create a whole folder full of stuff. Just label it proof. Copyright proof for Amazon, which gets uppity. We got to talk about shapeshifters, though. Interesting subject. First, we got to talk about like Skinwalker Ranch and stuff. You've got to understand that the admittedly very spooky concept of sort of these ghostly or spiritual phenomena. In some cases, the idea of is similar to the berserker, as Varg would put it, the berserker, sort of totemic in nature, not just within Mesoamerican lore, it's also European, Asian, basically everywhere. The idea of changing your form in some way. It goes into the physical with sort of tales of shapeshifters, skinwalkers. The idea is that there are beings of various sorts that are capable of changing shape. They can mislead you. But this is an old tale. It's just like the concept of the Kelpie, which you probably have never heard of in a folkloric sense. You probably only know it from Harry Potter. It's a very real paranormal phenomena that was spoken of in ancient lore. The idea was these sort of strange horse-like creatures that are missing a lower jaw for some reason. If you were to try to ride them, you'd get dragged down to the bottom of the lake and devoured, basically, or turned into a spirit or something. Now, usually malevolent in nature. Skinwalkers are on the more highly malevolent side as far as sort of the modern creepypasta side of folklore goes. And I'd like to point something very important out. Just because it is new, just because it is a new concept within the occult or within folklore, so it's an urban legend as we would label it, doesn't matter. Every tale that you have within the spiritual was once looked at the same way, fundamentally, outside of the strictures of certain organized religious movements. So I don't discount anything just because it's new. It's like Champ. The concept of sightings of a serpent within Lake Champlain are fairly new. The Samuel D. Champlain sightings never took place. All he saw were big fish, and he recorded them as such. He saw lake sturgeon. He's possibly sea sturgeon. That's probably what the Lake Champlain monster is. A family of sea sturgeon that adapted to an aquatic environment that wasn't highly saline in nature. They're just bigger than the rest of the sturgeon. There, you've got your explanation. You got two of them swimming side by side. A tourist is going to think a 14-foot-long sturgeon is probably a sea monster, especially when it looks all crenellated and spiky, and they're kind of weird, prehistoric-looking fish anyway. They look a little bit like a crocodile, all things considered, and about the same size as an average crocodile as well, bigger than an alligator. They're huge. I've only ever seen one in a museum. That one was like 5 feet long. It's still rather imposing. But shapeshifters. Here's the interesting thing about the concept of a skinwalker, a shapeshifter, something like that. Or, dimensional vortices and stuff like that. The problem is that they can't be disproven. It's sort of like with the Politis, sort of like the missing 411 stuff. If you think there's like entities, UFOs, Bigfoot or whatever, disappearing people off in the woods, because you can't document them directly, there's something too mysterious about them to do so, you can't disprove them. Or tales of giant squid, deep in the ocean where man can't really fully explore, that are 200 feet long. Yeah, they could absolutely be down there. But if they're not and you make the claim, there's no way to prove a negative. Therein lies the problem. We can't explore everything perfectly. Science will never be perfected and never be at a peak. It's always simply increasing. Over time, therefore, some paranormal phenomena get disproven. Like the jackalope or something. The jackalope does not exist. Modern urban legend. It was made up as a campfire story. Some people, though, believed it and then went out to look for them, and of course they never found them. Can they search the entire desert for jackalopes? No, they can't be in every place at once, just like they can't drain Lake Champlain to find out exactly what Champ is. Or they could, but it would be an ecological disaster, the likes of which Vermont certainly has never seen. New York, I don't know, 3 Mile Island is a pretty close second. But you can't disprove shapeshifters, because if you're looking for a shapeshifter, what can they do? They can shift shapes. Now it's just a tree. But these legends are, while the Skinwalker thing and the sci-fi side of shapeshifters is fairly new, it goes back a long time. Humans, they put on a certain pelt. There were werewolf cults within Europe, or wolf cults, I should say. They would wear a pelt that was, consecrated the right way. It had, like, certain magical seals, and they'd go around and walk around on all fours, and the thought was that they were approaching the wolf-like state. The initial shapeshifter, though, isn't actually shifting shapes. It's sort of Shakespearean. They're acting in a different way, in a convincing enough way. They're play acting and becoming more like that which they wish to become, like the bear, the elk, the wolf, or whatever it happens to be. There was no illusion that if you put on the wolf fur and the special pelt that you became a wolf. But you could be convincing enough in that role. You'd go around, terrorize people, and maybe attack and eat them, cannibalize them. There were cults that did these sorts of things. Certainly well up into the Renaissance era. I think more in the medieval era you have stuff like this. You've got dancing plague and weird shit like that in Europe at the time. People are filled with insanity. People didn't dance until they literally died of exhaustion, among other things. And these sorts of weird things have happened. They've been documented properly to have happened. There were cases where people would wear a wolf pelt and go around and attack people, thinking that they were wolf-like. If they looked in a mirror, they didn't expect to see a wolf glaring back at them. But they did expect to see that sort of trope of a wild animal. So, invulnerable because of the strength. You've got the fusion, essentially, of the animalistic strength with man's mentality. The idea was that you became basically unstoppable. It's similar to the concept of the berserker, working themselves up into a rage before battle, emulating the bear or the lion or whatever. It's a basic same concept. But the shape-shifting was not understood to be fully physical. More often within a paranormal context, if it's more physical, it's within cryptozoology. It's this animal is capable of transforming itself or blending in so perfectly with its surroundings that it is basically a shapeshifter. It's basically like a giant chameleon. This dragon can also look a lot like a rock. You're never going to be able to tell the difference unless you have this special potion from the wise old lady down the street or something. By the way, you can give me 2 coppers. I've got some on hand. That's sort of how it worked. That's about all. Peace out.